The air seemed to disappear from the room as Paige's flawlessly manicured finger pointed straight at me. "Julia, dear," she said, her voice coated in fake concern. "I'm sure you realize that this kind of holiday demands a certain polish. Perhaps it would be best if you sit this one out." The Anderson family dining room went still. 20 pairs of eyes turned toward me, some with sympathy, others with barely hidden smugness. The extravagant vacation arrangements for Royal Pearl Island Resort. The elite Maldives escape Paige had spent the last 40 minutes describing, suddenly felt like a blade twisting between my ribs. My husband Oliver's hand slipped into mine beneath the table, gripping so tightly I could feel his pulse pounding against my palm. The crystal chandelier above us scattered prismatic light across the mahogany table where moments earlier, Paige had spread out actual blueprints of the presidential villa she'd booked. The villa I was now being directly excluded from. "My name is Julia. I'm 32 and a former barista with a secret. This is the story of how I turned a vacation rejection into the most costly lesson my mother-in-law ever received." "Mother, if Julia's not going, I'm not going either," Oliver said, his voice slicing through the uneasy silence. The tightness in his jaw revealed the fury he was trying to suppress. Paige's face stiffened into the expression I'd come to recognize too well over 3 years of marriage to her son. "Don't be absurd, Oliver. The whole family will be there. Your cousins are flying in from Europe. You can't miss it because your wife isn't." She paused, searching for the harshest words she could use in polite company. "Comfortable in luxury environments." "She's right, Oliver," his sister Vanessa added, wine glass swaying between her fingers. "Julia would feel so out of place. Remember how intimidated she looked at the yacht club last summer? What Vanessa didn't mention was how she'd accidentally splashed champagne on my dress that day, then loudly offered to purchase me something more suitable while the other guests pretended not to hear. I touched Oliver's arm softly. "It's all right," I said quietly. "You should go with your family." The victory that flickered across Paige's face made my stomach churn. She believed she'd triumphed, just as she had every other time she'd tried to drive a wedge between me and Oliver since the day he brought home that coffee shop girl he'd fallen for. When I met Oliver at the cafe where I worked while completing my master's degree in business, he was unlike the other affluent customers, warm, sincere, and never making me feel inferior because I was serving coffee. When we fell in love, I thought I'd found my storybook ending. I didn't realize his mother would make it her personal mission to tear us apart. Paige Anderson wasn't just wealthy, she was generationally rich, the type who considered anything less than a private jet to be roughing it. From the very beginning, she made it obvious that a coffee girl didn't belong in the Anderson family. "Darling," she'd say to Oliver while I was standing right there, "remember the Rothschild girl? She just returned from Paris, still single. For 3 years, I tolerated her endless belittling at every family gathering. Oh, Julia, dear, is that dress from a department store? Or how charming that you used to serve coffee. It must be so lovely to never have to work again." What Paige didn't know, what no one except Oliver knew, was that while I was brewing coffee and studying, I'd also been investing in cryptocurrency since its earliest days. Those investments had expanded into a fortune that would make even the Andersons seem middle class. But I stayed silent, living modestly and reinvesting my returns. Oliver respected my wish to keep my wealth private, understanding it was the only way to discover who truly valued me for who I was. As the vacation planning dinner came to an end, Paige was nearly radiating with self-importance. "I've reserved the entire Royal Pearl Island Resort for 2 weeks," she repeated for perhaps the 5th time. "Private beaches, personal chefs, helicopter excursions, only the finest for the Andersons." I smiled and nodded, even as she openly removed me from the guest list. But as we drove home that evening, I wasn't scheming about how to change her mind. I was checking my phone for one very particular email. 6 months earlier, when I'd first heard Paige mention wanting to book Royal Pearl Island, I'd made a few quiet inquiries. The resort had been facing financial trouble due to the economic downturn, and its owner was seeking a discreet buyout. Through a network of shell companies, I'd purchased not just the Royal Pearl Resort, but the entire island. I had kept the existing management in place, knowing this day would arrive. The email I was waiting for came through just as Oliver turned onto our street. Acquisition complete. All paperwork finalized. Royal Pearl Island is officially yours. You're being awfully quiet, Oliver said as we stepped into our modest home. The homepage constantly suggested we upgrade to something more suitable for an Anderson. Just thinking, I replied, unable to hide a faint smile. I'm so sorry about my mother, he sighed, loosening his tie. I'll tell her tomorrow that we're both staying home. I took his hands in mine. Actually, I think you should go. His eyebrows lifted in shock. Without you, no chance. Trust me, I said, feeling a plan solidify in my mind. I think it's time your mother learned that appearances can be misleading. The next morning, as the Andersons boarded their private jet to the Maldives, I made another call. It was time to put my plan into motion. Paige had no idea that her flawless vacation was about to teach her an unforgettable lesson about judging people by their origins. While their plane was somewhere above the Indian Ocean, I was making plans of my own. My laptop displayed the resort's security feeds, a feature the former owner had installed that was about to become incredibly useful. I had established a secure connection to the resort system that allowed me to oversee everything remotely from our home office. The Anderson family reached Royal Pearl Island Resort late that afternoon. I watched through the cameras as Paige guided the group across untouched white sand beaches toward the lavish villas. She was already strategizing how she'd post this exclusive getaway on social media to make her society friends jealous. Welcome to Royal Pearl Island, the resort manager James greeted them with the familiar smile I'd prepared him for. We've been expecting you, Paige glowed. Everything looks flawless. I trust the presidential villa is prepared for me. About that, James replied, glancing at his tablet with rehearsed concern. There appears to be a minor adjustment in arrangements. The owner is currently occupying the presidential villa. Paige's carefully composed face faltered in confusion. That's impossible. I specifically reserved the entire island. No other guests were meant to be here. The owner isn't a guest, Mrs. Anderson, James explained calmly. They own the property and have final authority over all accommodations. Well, who is this owner? I insist on speaking with them. Paige's voice sharpened, drawing other family members closer. James smiled courteously. Of course, if you'll all follow me to the main pavilion, the owner has left particular instructions for your arrival. The family was escorted to a graceful open-air pavilion overlooking the ocean. On a large screen, a video began to play. My face appeared, and I watched through the security feeds as Paige's jaw visibly dropped. Hello, Anderson family, my recorded self said warmly. Welcome to my island. Yes, you heard that correctly. I own Royal Pearl Island Resort along with several other high-end properties around the world. The heavy silence was broken by Paige's sharp inhale. Oliver tried to hide a smile, having been told the secret just before boarding the plane. I had pulled him aside and quietly revealed the truth about my wealth and ownership of the resort. You see, I continued on screen, while you were occupied judging me for serving coffee and assuming I couldn't afford luxurious experiences, I was constructing an empire. That coffee girl you dismissed, she's worth more than the entire Anderson fortune put together. Paige sank into a chair, her designer purse slipping to the floor. Vanessa's face had turned a remarkable shade of green. Now, regarding your accommodations, Paige, you'll be staying in our economy villa. It's fairly modest by your standards, but as you once said, some people need to learn their place. The rest of the family may select from our standard rooms. This is absurd, Paige screeched. I paid for the presidential villa. Your deposit has been returned, James informed her smoothly. The owner's decision is final, the video continued. Oh, and Paige, remember when you said luxury resorts can be intimidating for someone of my background? Let's put that theory to the test. I've arranged for you to work as a server at the beach bar during your stay. Consider it a lesson about judging people by their professions. Paige's face twisted with fury. I will not. Do you have any idea who I am? Yes, James replied evenly. You're the mother-in-law of our owner who has left very clear instructions. If you prefer not to comply, you're welcome to depart. Although the next flight out isn't for 3 days. What followed was pandemonium. Paige threatened legal action, demanded phones, which mysteriously had no signal, and even attempted to secure a private helicopter, all unavailable by my directive. For the next 2 weeks, the formidable Paige Anderson served drinks to her own relatives, wearing the standard staff uniform she had so often ridiculed. Every time she handed over a cocktail, the server badge shimmered with her name, Paige Trainee. But this isn't merely a tale of revenge. On their final day, I arrived at the island, having scheduled my private flight to align with their last day at the resort. Paige was working at the beach bar, her designer outfits replaced by the simple staff uniform, her carefully preserved appearance faded in the tropical heat. Enjoying yourself? I asked, taking a seat at the bar. She looked at me, her anger seemingly replaced by fatigue. Why did you do all this? Because you needed to understand that value isn't defined by background or bank accounts, I answered. Every person who served you a drink, cleaned your suite, or prepared your meals is a human being worthy of respect. Tears gathered in her eyes. I never looked at it that way. I know, I said gently. That was the issue. From that moment on, Paige Anderson was a different woman. The experience of standing in someone else's shoes truly shifted her perspective. She founded an organization offering educational scholarships to service industry workers. And yes, she finally learned to treat people with dignity regardless of their job or origins. These days, our family dinners feel different. Paige asks the serving staff about their lives and aspirations. She remembers their names and stories. Last Christmas, she even insisted on serving dinner herself, saying it helps her remain grounded. The Royal Pearl Resort. It's still mine, but now it operates a distinctive program where privileged individuals can experience working in service roles. Paige helps oversee it, sharing her story as a warning about prejudice and arrogance. As for Oliver and me, we still savor our morning coffee at the same cafe where we met. Sometimes Paige joins us, chatting comfortably with the baristas she once would have overlooked. She's learned that true character isn't measured by how you treat your equals. It's revealed in how you treat those you once believed were beneath you. Last week, she surprised me with a handmade photo album filled with snapshots from that infamous island vacation. On the final page, she'd written, "Thank you for teaching me that the best view of life comes from climbing down off your high horse." I keep that album in my office at the resort, a reminder that sometimes the greatest luxury isn't about thread counts or private jets. It's about the ability to recognize the value in every person you encounter. And Paige, she still works 1 shift a month at the beach bar. She says it keeps her humble.